said some key things there. When you said it, family, that's what we as Ag Republicans are all about. We are family units. That's what our farms are here in Pennsylvania. And I don't care if, not only Pennsylvania, but if you go to Ohio, you go to Illinois, you go to Indiana, they're all family units. And what you said has a lot of value to it. You know, constantly we're being undermined by different organizations, different associations, and they all have their own agenda. But I appreciate your comments there, George, and thank you for being here today. Now, Irene Harris has the minutes from our last meeting. She can either read those minutes or we can dispense with the reading of the minutes. Would you like to read the minutes, Irene?
I didn't make copies.
Oh, you want to read them? Okay.
The Pennsylvania Ag Republicans held their annual meeting in conjunction with the Pennsylvania Farm Show on Monday, January 7th, 2019 at the Farm Show Complex. Mike Firestein, chair, opened the meeting. Vice Chair George Gregg led the Pledge of Allegiance. Irene Harris, Secretary, gave the Secretary's report and it was approved as read. Lisa Nankolas, Treasurer, gave the Treasury's report and it was approved for audit. Mike Firestein stated that Senator Pat Toomey was not able to attend the meeting. However, Senator Toomey and his family attended the farm show this past weekend and he was very concerned about agriculture. His first question was, how bad is the dairy industry? He understands the supply and demand. The former First Lady took fat out of milk in our schools and the consumption went way down because it has no taste. Politics does affect ag. You can see the numbers following the school students stopping drinking milk and the numbers in the dairy industry crisis. Congressman Glenn G.T. Thompson gave the update from Washington, D.C., an update on the economy, shared thoughts on the mixed results and some of the positives from the 2017 elections, reviewed the recently passed Farm Bill with the largest Republican votes in history, tracking how they took the taste and nutrients out of milk, how school consumption, out of our milk in school consumption, and it affected the dairy farmers. We lost an entire generation of milk drinkers and it will be hard to get them back. He's working to get milk back into our schools. Mike introduced legislators in attendance, Representative Mark Keller, Representative Dave Zimmerman, Representative Jonathan Hershey, Congressman Dan Muser, Senator Toomey's Representative Larissa. Mike reported that we are working on the third annual Kentucky Derby. It was a good fundraiser for us. We are also working on lobbying in 2019. We are working on revising our bylaws. A discussion was held at a Republican meeting at the PA GOP meeting. Bylaws will be sent out in October for a vote at next year's annual meeting. Although we did have an election in 18, bylaws state that they need to happen in odd numbered years, and we did not have a member at large. Election of officers was held for 2019-20. Results as follows: Mike Firestein, Chair; George Gregg, Vice Chair; Irene Harris, Secretary; Lisa Nankolas, Treasurer; Caleb Wright, Member at Large. It was mentioned that the PA Ag Republicans will hold a meeting at the PA GOP meeting on February 1st, 2019. At this meeting, we'll be planning the Kentucky Derby event, passing resolutions for milk and the farm show crisis, and look at some lobbying in 2019. Respectfully submitted, Irene Harris. Then we also met at the PA GOP meetings. We had one on February 1st at the Hershey Lodge, and it was reported that many PA Ag Republicans attended Congressman Thompson's Ag Legislation Forum at the farm show, and the videos were posted on the website. We had Superior candidate Rebecca Warren, who spoke to the group, and she was running for Superior Court. And we had Davis Hare and Chris Huffman, who were vying for the 12th congressional seat to replace Tom Marino. Congressman Thompson recently introduced H.R. 4101 to restore fat in the milk in our schools. The group passed a resolution supporting whole milk in our schools. We also passed a resolution supporting the Pennsylvania Farm Show, which educates others about agriculture and making the show affordable for a family to attend. September 20th, we also had a meeting at the PA GOP meeting, and after discussion, we passed a resolution on open primaries and against Sunday hunting. Respectfully submitted, Irene Harris.
Thank you, Irene. It's a good time for me to acknowledge Irene this time and Lisa. They work hard for the Ag Republicans, and they do an outstanding job for us, so I'd like to thank you. At this time, I would take a motion to approve the minutes. Second by Beverly Gruber. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And now we'll have the treasurer's report from Lisa Nancolis.
Treasurer's report is from September 9th, 2019 to January 1st, 2020. The bank balance from the last report was $4,365.57. From September 9th to January 1st, we had some memberships come in of $185. Over the weekend, we had $215 come in for new memberships. We received some tonight. Obviously, they are not on this report. And neither are the memberships that came in over the weekend. You will see their total income is $185, as I said, from those memberships. Expenses went out for Irene Harris, labels, envelopes, stamps, and WordPress, $316.30. Also stamps for me, $440. And if you see that there are stamps twice for newsletters, Irene will use those additional stamps if she has anything left for the party that...
Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, Kentucky Derby party. Okay. Kish printing, printing resolutions. We ended up in Harrisburg. We did walk around for Ag Republicans. So we had resolutions printed, $16.47. If you want to know about those resolutions, please ask Irene. We had Penview printing copies of the newsletter, $499.79. Total expenses, $1,272.56. The ending balance as of January 1st, 2020, that we have in our checking account is $3,278.01. And so adding, if we added in the $215 that I got over the weekend, now we have $3,493.01. And then we have some memberships this evening. So I'm sitting over there. If you want to pay your dues, please come over and see me. Also, one more thing, if you paid your dues and you did not get a pink card, you need to see me for voting. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I'll take a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Boots?
Second.
Second, George Craig. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
File for audit. Let's talk a little bit about 2019. We did the farm show resolution, supporting the show, which educates everyone about agriculture and making the show affordable for families to attend, which is key. This is a family show. Yes, we use state funding for it, but it is also our showcase for the #1 industry in the state of Pennsylvania. You know, when you look at agriculture contributing $7.1 billion to the overall economy of the state of Pennsylvania, that's a significant part of that economy. Resolution supporting home milk in our schools, that's vitally important. And G.T. Thompson, Congressman G.T. Thompson was instrumental in helping us with that, as well as some of the other legislators that are in the room here on a state level. You know, it is vitally important that, as George mentioned earlier, that people really understand the value of our food. We had a hearing that Congressman Thompson had set up here, a listening session, I should say, that took place on Saturday, and we had Congressman Johns, who's also a doctor, and he said when he was in medical school, and GT, correct me if I say anything wrong here, he said when he was in medical school, they said, oh, whole milk is bad for you, eating meat is bad for you. He said, you know, he said, we as physicians are not nutritionists. He said, I have come to find out just the opposite. You know, if you want to lose weight, drink whole milk. And I'll tell you whose testimonial to that is Representative Frank Ryan. Frank had, after he was elected, he was at a banquet with me, and he wouldn't drink the milk because it was whole milk. And I said, boy, you're making a big mistake. He said, I don't know what you mean, Mike. And I explained it to him. You know, he thought it had to be skim milk or 2% milk. And he went on to whole milk, and you can ask him, he actually lost weight through drinking whole milk. Now, you cannot overindulge, but at the same time, it's much healthier for you. And I'm pleased to announce this. I had received a text message from Congressman Thompson. He was on Air Force One with the president, and he's sitting at a desk, and he was eating cookies, which really surprised me. I didn't think he'd eat cookies. But he had a glass of milk there, So I responded to him. I said, was it whole milk? Or he said, I asked them for milk that had the most fat in it. He said, unfortunately, it was 2%. But I know the next time you fly on Air Force One, it probably will be whole milk because you're going to be persistent, aren't you, GT? Resolution against Sunday hunting. And that came from our farmers, our constituents. We didn't just make that up. They wanted a day of rest. They wanted a day that they don't have to worry about hearing shooting next to their barn, hearing shooting on their, because that's a day of rest. That's a day, you know, they work 6 hard days a week, and that day is the day that they want to attend church, come home, and relax. And they don't want to be concerned about hunters on their property. So that came directly from our agricultural constituents that they oppose Sunday hunting. And quite frankly, the Plains Sect probably will start posting a lot of their farmland because of that. You know, they will not allow hunting on their farms on a Sunday. Resolution against open primaries, we were opposed to that also. Kentucky Derby, we held a fundraiser, which was a success. It was a great success. We had a lot of fun there. And the one outhouse there, it's a historic, we had it at Tulpahawken Manor. It's a lot of historic buildings there, including the outhouses. And that's the first time, GT, was it a 7-holder?
6.
I think it had 7.
I think it was 6.
Oh, 6, excuse me, yeah. And I never saw that before in my life, having grown up using outhouses. But it was a great time. George Washington actually had slept at Tulpahawken Manor. So we're going to return there again this year. So I'm going to mark your calendars for May the 2nd. That you need to come just to see GT in his Kentucky Derby outfit. That is just worth your money, and you'll get your money's worth out of that with his hat, and we had a great time. We've been working very hard for our local candidates, our state judges, as well as our congressmen and state reps. And it's important because, you know, I'll receive phone calls. A lot of times we think the Plains Sect doesn't vote. Well, I got news for you. You know, they do. Not all of them, but a lot of times their bishops do not know that they vote. Am I right, Representative Zimmerman? And they will call me and they'll say, where do your candidates stand on this issue? Where do they stand on that issue? And they have a voice. And they'll let their voice be known. But you will not know that they're letting their voice be known. So it's important that we support our candidates. And a lot of times I will question our candidates to find out, you know, where they stand on certain issues, because that is very important. But, you know, right now, one of my main emphasis is working on getting the president reelected. You know, and I have a vested interest in that, quite frankly, because I do farm. And I know how important it is to have a good trade agreement. And we have the Mexican-Canadian trade agreement in place. You signed it, right, GT? Congress? Have they signed it?
House passed it. So we're waiting for the Senate now.
There, we're waiting for the Senate approval on that. And if you don't think that's important, and George Gregg would know this, a majority of our milk in the United States goes where? Mexico, you know. And I was at a conference at Moody's Analytical. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Moody's Analytical, but they did a graph listing trade with China and all the various countries. And they had a dividing line there, an equality line, and the gentleman who presented that graph said, you know, it's more like foreign aid than it is foreign trade. That's how far it was out of balance. And when you see that graph, it really, really makes you think. I should have made copies of it so you can see it. But I was really concerned after I saw that graph, and that's why we need new trade agreements, you know, so that our farmers get a fair price, our farmers get treated fairly, you know. And we have a gentleman here from that represents the milk industry, and he can tell you that also. Some of the things that I want to talk about, just, you know, when you look at our overall economy, you know, the ag economy is going through a rough time right now. Hopefully, and that'll straighten out. You know, we go through cycles, but you look at the overall economy, it's booming. our stock market has been going up, even with the impeachment hearings and trials and what have you. You know, and for those of you who have 401ks, have you looked at it recently? You know, that's the proof in the pudding. You know, I can tell you anything in the world. GT can tell you anything in the world. Congressman Muser can tell you anything. But when you start seeing the facts, when you start looking at your 401ks, you start looking at the stock market, that's the proof on the job that's being done. So we're going to get heavily involved in the election process this year. We're going to support our candidates, which is vitally important. And by the way, I talked to Senator Toomey's office today. They had called me. He's going to try to come to the farm show on Saturday. And one of my first questions was, where does he stand on the impeachment process? Because I have a lot of concern about that. And his office informed me that at this point in time, there is no evidence that he can support the impeachment process. So, and that was good news, and quite frankly, that is the truth. So, but he is going to try to be here on Saturday, unless they start the proceedings, and then he has to stay in Washington. We had handed out checks to all our legislators, Republican legislators on the ag side this past year. We hope to do it again, because that's why we have fundraisers. The fundraisers aren't to benefit us. You know, we all donate our time. But we need it for campaign signs. We need to get the message out, why it's important to get our legislators reelected and the job they're doing. Because that's what our farmers want to hear. They don't want us just knocking on the door and say, hey, vote for Representative Zimmerman. They want to hear what kind of job he is doing for us and how he represents us. You know, and I'm so proud of our representatives on a state level as well as on a national level. You know, unfortunately, we're losing one of them. He's bailing out on us, Mark Keller, which I'm kind of upset about, because that's a big void on the Ag Committee. I know there's times when I'd call him at 9 o'clock at night and he wished he never gave me his cell phone number with many issues that I had concerns about. But he had taken my calls, he listened to me, and he had answers for me. He didn't try to whitewash it. He knew the issues, he knew the answers. And that is vitally important. But so we're going to get out, we're going to get signs put up in yards, we're going to knock on doors, and you think, well, signs aren't all that important. But if I have a sign, elect Congressman Muser on my farm, which I did, you know, I have farmers ask me, well, why do you want us to vote for Congressman Muser? You know, and then I give them the facts on why we need Congressman Muser in Washington. You know, the same as if you have some state legislator signs on your property, and that means a lot. You know, it's not just a matter of putting a sign at a crossroad. Anybody can do that. The signs need to be on your farm so that the people know who you're supporting. And don't worry, they will question you. 2020, as I mentioned before, is an important year as we need to keep the White House. We need to take back the Senate and maintain the Senate. And that's vitally important also. You know, we found out what happens when we don't have control of Congress. You know, I'm sad every day when I see the news. I'm sad every day when I hear the news, read the paper, because it's not good. You know, you know, and hopefully we make some changes. But I would at this time like to call on the chairman of the state committee, Lawrence Tapas, who's taken time out of his busy schedule to be with us today. Lawrence has done he came into the chairmanship with his feet on the ground and running, and he hasn't stopped since that. So let's welcome Lawrence Tapas.